Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host Rashid, and I like to bring in a person that I've followed his work for a while now, and I made sure I might mispronounce the last name, but I've done everything possible to try to make sure that I pronounce it right. And I got to bring in Carl Zha. I believe that is. I hear everybody saying Zha, but I did research, and I think in Chinese it's pronounced with a J sound. So I'm going to bring Carl in right now, and he can correct me if I'm wrong. How's it going today, Carl?
Hey, Rashid. When the camera opened up, I'm really surprised you look just like your avatar, Morpheus.
How's it going today?
Good. It's morning on Bali right now. It's 8:00, bright and early. And my last name, it's you are correct. I mean, the closest English equivalent would be like a J sound.
Yeah.
But because I am actually not a standard Mandarin speaker, like my own dialect, it's just pronounced za. Like pretend the H is not there. It's just like ZA. That's it. Za. Make it easy.
Well, people talk about you as a geopolitical analyst, but I see it more as a geopolitical historical analyst because you talk on geopolitics, but you can dive so deep into the root causes and the historical leanings of certain events. And that is one reason why I really follow your work from RT to wherever platform that you're on to whatever show that you're doing. I really, really enjoy your work and your insight on things. So with that said, where do we stand with the Ukrainian crisis right now? Because I want you to touch on that a little bit and give us your perspective on the reason for it and where we're headed.
Right. I mean, right now, the Ukraine war is just essentially a proxy war. The West, the so-called collective West, which is really US and NATO, is waging on Russia. They're just fighting Russians to the last Ukrainians. In fact, the U.S. official openly gloat about it. They say, "Oh, we don't have to put our boots in the ground. All we have to do is just keep on providing, the hundreds of billions of dollars." But it's hurting. It's hurting Europe. It's hurting U.S. I mean, we have all seen the skyrocketing prices. I'm sure everyone is aware of the inflation because Russia is one of the major provider of energy and food to the rest of the world. And this war is it's the war and the sanction is really a drag on the world economy. And I think I think the war I think I speak for most people, most peace-loving people in the world, that everybody wants to see the world bring to an end. However, the U.S. and NATO are not interested in that. I mean, there are countless countries, China, Brazil, South Africa, they all offered to broker a peace deal, but broker a ceasefire. But U.S. has flatly refused. They say, no, like we cannot have a peace until Russia is defeated. That's just ridiculous because Russia is not going to be defeated. I mean, Russia is still one of the great powers in the world. They have abundant resources. Their people are very patriotic. I was just in Moscow in June, and like it's nothing like I was. Well, actually, I wasn't. I didn't have any preconceived notions, but I was still surprised by what I witnessed because Moscow is one of the most beautiful city I think I ever visited. And the streets are clean, people are nice, and nobody bother me on the streets. And I would if it's not for the winter, I would pick to live in Moscow in a heartbeat. And the shops are open, side street cafes are full. I have a whole travel log hosted on my YouTube channel. People can see it for themselves. People in Russia, they're just trying to go on with their everyday lives. But right now it's the West that's bringing war to their footsteps, and that has been the case since I think late since end of the Cold War essentially, because back then in 1989, 1990, Gorbachev approached US and NATO and said, look, we are going to pull the Soviet Red Army out of East Germany, and it will allow the German unification to happen. All we ask in return is that you do not push NATO any further east. And US at the time made a verbal promise, like, sure, yeah, we will do that. And Gorbachev was naive to take that at face value. But ever since, they've been pushing NATO closer and closer to the Russian border, and to include Ukraine now is like almost a de facto member of NATO. It's receiving all the NATO equipment, of financial aid, and NATO training, and this is a situation that Russia will absolutely not accept. I mean, many even top policymakers, George Kennan, who is the architect of the whole containment of Soviet Union during the Cold War, he was against the NATO expansion. He said, you are making a serious mistake. You are going to embitter the Russian people. What you're going to end up is Russia is going to lash out. And that happened like last year, finally. So it's not like nobody has foreseen this. Many policymakers warned over and over again. But the hubris and American exceptionalism made people believe they can just keep crossing Russia's red line. They're doing that with China right now in Taiwan. And all it does is just to keep on feeding to the military industrial complex back home. The great contract for all the arms manufacturers that they're now like working overtime to fill the orders to send artillery shells to Ukraine. And that's another thing. U.S. spends more money on its military than the next 10 nations combined. Yet what did that exactly give us? It didn't even give us like what we think you would give us with all this spending on the military. There's actually a rant video by one of the Russian grunts that was viral on the internet. I saw recently, and he was saying, like for 20 years, Hollywood has misled us about the powerful wonder technological toys of US and NATO. And there's how awesome their Leopard tank is, their Abrams tank is. And guess what? We have seen on the battlefield, at least Russians produce weapons actually works, and like your Leopard, your Abrams outside your Hollywood movies, they're not always crack up to be.
Да, вот я за все расскажу в общем. Вот у нас в обществе, блядь, благодаря, блядь, контролю, блядь, за интернетом американцами, нахуй, полностью глобально контролируется, блядь, эта вся хуйня, информационные потоки, нахуй. Это уже, блядь, длится, нахуй, с 90-х годов. У нас поколению внушили, нахуй, что у них все там заебато, все охуенно, рай на земле, светочи демократии и все дела, нахуй. А у нас все говно, правительство говно, депутаты говно, блядь, менты козлы, блядь. Всюду, блядь, дерьмо одно нахуй. Хотя, блядь, дорог понастроили хуево тучу. В каждой семье, блядь, машин ебаться в рот нахуй. 1-2 точно есть. У кого нету машины в семье, это просто он не хочет ее купить нахуй. Или не может, потому что не имеет прав нахуй. А и при желании, то есть, как поднялось благосостояние после 90-х, охуенно. А нам все время впаривают, что мы живем в говне и в дерьме. А Запад живет, вот примерно на войне нахуй. Ебаный рот. Самые крутые в мире, блядь, леопарды, блядь. Это пиздец, это супер техника, супер пиздец вообще, нахуй, ебаный рот, нахуй, блядь. Приехали, нахуй, и умылись тут, нахуй, все, блядь, кровью, нахуй, эти леопарды. Ни автоматозаряжания, ни хуя ничего нет. Все, блядь, нахуй, тяжеленные, буксуют, нихуя толку от них нет. Вон их похуярили сколько, напротив нас, вот здесь, нахуй, ебать. Кладбище, нахуй, устроили, ебаный рот. Точно так же с их самыми крутыми абрамсами будет. Тоже это все распиарено. военная хуйня. И так во всем. Любой наш автомобиль возьми военный нахуй, блядь. И ихний нахуй. У нас, блядь, жрет, что хочешь нахуй, блядь. На коленке можно сделать, отремонтировать. У нас, блядь, техника, блядь, вот эта вся. Она предназначена для войны. А у них она предназначена для тухлых, блядь, понтов нахуй, блядь. Вот попонтоваться. Смотри, как он крутой. У него там то, все, хуе-мое, нахуй, ебать. Вот покупайте наш. Они же, сука, торгаши, нахуй. Вот они и впаривают по всему миру. Их не патриот, нахуй, в жопе, нахуй. Сука, нахуй. Наш, блядь, самолет, нахуй, за раз, блядь. Он, блядь, выпускает 35 всех своих ракет, нахуй, по ложным целям, нахуй. И наш самолет его спокойненько въебывает. Охуенно супер патриот, нахуй, которым всем впаривают. Саудовской Аравии, Корее, блядь, Японии, Европе, блядь. Всем-всем. А мы, оказывается, вот так, опа, имеем, нахуй, и все. И чё, нахуй, это американцы, нахуй. Да обосрались, нахуй. И еще обосрутся, нахуй, блядь. У меня все, нахуй.
Отлично, спасибо.
And that's a reality. And U.S. is spending gazillions of dollars because people don't realize the U.S. military spending is not necessarily to just make better weapons. U.S. military spending, the main purpose is to feed the military-industrial complex, to grease the palms, and to fund the comfortable retirement of these think tankers and these top military officials. They're nice, comfortable retirement in Bahamas. You know, that's the whole purpose. That's why we're end up with boondoggles like F-35 that barely flies, and then spend insane, obscene amount of money on it. And so you know, I maybe it stopped me anytime. You know, I can go rant on forever.
No, you know, are there any adults in Washington, D.C.? Because common sense would tell me that if China is the largest manufacturer and China is the largest trade partner to practically everybody in the world, they have the 5 largest banks in the world, they have the most billionaires in the world, they have the largest industrial complex in the world, and I owe them over $1 trillion in debt. Common sense would tell me not to try to antagonize and provoke them so that they call in the debt. Like I hear a lot of financial pundits say this. They say, well, China has a lot of debt that they have to deal with, and their economy is collapsing. And then the thing that comes to mind is, okay, let's just give you that and say China has all of this hidden debt. The first law of nature is self-preservation. If I have all of this hidden debt before I collapse, I will call the debt in on you that you owe me. I mean, but they missed that point. Why do you think they missed that major point there?
I think there's a lot of hubris. There's a lot of American exceptionalism. People have so used to the long years of U.S. hegemony and before that European hegemony, and it's been like 500 years. The West basically did whatever they want to the global South countries, and this is one thing freaked them out about the rise of China, because suddenly there's a non-white country that's growing powerful, and then it's growing powerful without without the same development path that they themselves have been on. China have grown powerful in the last 40 years without waging a war, without colonialism, without slavery. For them, that blows their mind, because that's not in their comprehensions. Like, how could this happen? That's why they start project all kind of their own past sins onto China. It's like China must do something freaky and funky, because there's no way they can get where they are without slavery, without colonialism. They must be practicing slave labor. They must be, stealing our technology. I mean, this is why reason China have 5G and we don't, because China must steal our 5G technology, right? And so we don't have it anymore. I mean, it's so ridiculous if you actually think about it. And another thing about the Chinese debt, the Chinese debt is internal debt. It's the Chinese government owe to the Chinese people, right? They have a credit, external credit. They have a large trade surplus. Right. So they don't owe to the rest of the world. They owe to themselves. Mm-hmm. So that's quite different when you're talking about debt. Unlike U.S. actually depend on countries like China and and Gulf countries to finance U.S. treasuries. They need China to continue to buy the treasuries to prop up the dollar. So that's quite different. And as you say, China is not looking for a confrontation with the United States. China has done quite well in the last 40 years. It just wants to do business. It's the U.S. that's initiating the hostility right now, and one of the reasons I say it's because they're really freaked out about this non-white nation is suddenly becoming a non like a near peer competitor, as they say, because U.S. is all about all spectrum dominance. You would not even tolerate like its own allies, European allies, to have independent foreign policy. Anybody who start questioning U.S., that's a U.S. ally or so-called ally, but really client states, they get slapped down. This happened in Australia in 1975 when Whitlam got removed. And this happened all the time in Japan. Anytime a Japanese prime minister start questioning a U.S. foreign policy, they get removed. It's simple as that. That's why people want it. Like now you have very pliant bureaucrats in EU, like von der Leyen, in Germany is Baerbock. These people who have been groomed since a young age through all these Atlanticist institutions to be closely tied to United States. And so now they're basically serving as parrots to regurgitate Washington's lines, even though it's so obvious what they say and what they do is completely contrary to Europe's own self-interest. Europe right now, the war in Ukraine is killing Europe right now because Russia is one of their main source of energy, and they're cutting that off for United States. And now United States want them to also cut off ties with China, one of their biggest customer and main market. So and right now, a lot of the European companies, especially German industrialists, they're moving their factory to United States because of the cheaper energy prices. So U.S. is literally cannibalizing its allies. Like Henry Kissinger famously said, to be U.S. enemy is dangerous, but to be U.S. friends is fatal.
Something that you were saying, I want to go back a second, especially when we're talking about the U.S. and China. I was listening to RT years ago, and they were interviewing a former Japanese prime minister, and he said that every time they made efforts to mend ties with China and make peace with China, the United States would step in. And when the Japanese were adamant that they wanted to be brotherly and friendly, that the U.S. and no specific terms told them that if you did that, we would seize the whole island of Okinawa. And this prevented them from having a peace treaty and a truce with the Chinese. Now,